Some animals are born into the wild with the worst possible advantage. They are bright where they should be hidden, pale where they should blend in, and visible in a world where survival often depends on disappearing. While most animals are protected by color, camouflage, and instinct, albino animals are born standing out from the very beginning. And that is exactly what makes them so unforgettable. Even now, somewhere in the world, rare white animals are moving through forests, deserts, oceans, and grasslands like living myths. Some are protected, some are admired, and some survive against impossible odds. So today, let's take a closer look at some of the most extraordinary albino and white animals ever seen. Creatures so rare that some people thought they weren't even real. Albinism in the wild is incredibly uncommon. In many species, the chances of being born with it can be as low as 1 in 10,000, or even rarer. These animals lack normal pigmentation, which affects their skin, fur, feathers, and eyes. That striking appearance may look beautiful to us, but in nature, beauty can be a dangerous burden. A white predator can be spotted too easily by prey. A white prey animal can be seen instantly by predators. Many albino animals also suffer from weak eyesight, sun sensitivity, and other physical disadvantages. In other words, from the moment they are born, life is already harder. And yet, some of them still manage to survive. One of the most famous examples was an albino alligator living at the California Academy of Sciences in San Francisco. Floating quietly in the water like any other alligator, it looked almost unreal. Its skin was completely white, and its reddish eyes made it look even more unusual. People visited the academy just to see it with their own eyes. But behind that beauty was a harsh truth. Albino alligators cannot handle strong sunlight well, and in the wild, they are easy to spot. A body that looks magical in captivity can become a deadly disadvantage in nature. That same pattern appears again and again across the animal kingdom. In Namibia's Etosha National Park, footage once surfaced of a remarkably pale elephant. People called it one of the most beautiful animals on Earth. At first glance, it looked like a true white elephant out of legend. But experts pointed out that sometimes elephants can appear much whiter than they really are after covering themselves in mud and then drying under the sun. The same thing happened in India, where a brilliantly white elephant filmed during a temple procession stunned viewers. Many assumed it had to be painted or coated in powder. But sometimes the explanation is simpler. Dust, mud, sunlight, and skin tone can combine to create an almost unreal appearance. Still, real albino or pigment-deficient elephants do exist, and when they do, they often look different from the pure white image people imagine. They can appear reddish-brown, pinkish when wet, and unusually pale compared to the rest of the herd. That difference is subtle to some, but unmistakable once you know what to look for. And perhaps that is part of what makes these animals so fascinating. They blur the line between biology and legend. That same sense of wonder surrounded one of the most famous white animals in history, Snowflake, the albino gorilla. Born with white fur and pinkish skin, Snowflake looked almost like a mythical creature. Some even compared his appearance to the legendary Yeti. He became the star attraction of the Barcelona Zoo, drawing huge crowds who came from all over just to see him. He lived alongside other gorillas and fathered many offspring, 22 according to reports, yet none of them inherited his albinism. He was unique, even among his own bloodline. But Snowflake's story also carried a sad truth. Animals with albinism often suffer from intense exposure to ultraviolet light because they lack protective melanin. In humans, that means constant sunscreen, covering up, and being careful under the sun. For animals in the wild, it can mean a lifetime of vulnerability. There is something bittersweet about seeing a creature so extraordinary protected inside a zoo. On one hand, captivity limits freedom. On the other, it may have been the very thing that allowed him to live longer than he ever could have in the wild. Then, there are the ocean sightings, the kind that feel less like wildlife encounters and more like glimpses into fantasy. Off the coast of Australia, and in waters where humpback whales travel, one name has become legendary: Migaloo, the white whale. Against the dark blue sea, his pale body looked almost luminous. Witnesses described the experience of seeing him as surreal, like watching a myth swim past in broad daylight. Even among the thousands of humpback whales migrating across the oceans, he stood out instantly. Over time, reports suggested that he may even have descendants, which only added to his legend. To encounter a whale like that in the open sea must feel like seeing something the world was never supposed to reveal so easily. Rare white animals do not just inspire awe, they also spark obsession. Take the white peacock, for example. When it opens its feathers, it can look less like a bird and more like a moving sculpture. The normal peacock is already one of the most extravagant birds on Earth, but covered in white, that same display becomes almost surreal. It is no surprise that places keeping white peacocks often attract heavy attention from visitors. People see elegance, purity, even something bridal in the shape of those feathers. But perhaps no white animal has been more misunderstood or more exploited than the white tiger. Many people assume white tigers are simply albino tigers, but in most cases, that is not true. Their condition is usually linked to leucism, not full albinism, which is why most white tigers do not have the pink or red eyes often associated with true albino animals. Their pale coats and blue eyes made them highly desirable to humans, and that desire led to deliberate breeding programs meant to produce more of them. The result was visually striking, but often devastating for the animals themselves. Inbreeding has been associated with serious health problems, including vision issues and physical deformities. In other words, the beauty people admired was often created through suffering. And that may be the most uncomfortable truth in this entire story. The rarest animals on Earth are often loved the most by human eyes and harmed the most by human greed. In Kenya, conservationists once reported sightings of an unusually pale giraffe and calf in the wild. Compared to ordinary giraffes, their lack of pigment was immediately obvious. The sight was breathtaking, but the reaction that followed revealed another danger. People worried that if the exact location became public, poachers might come. For rare animals, being seen can be the first step toward becoming a target. Sometimes protection means secrecy. Similar stories continue across land and sea. A pale moose standing near a roadside in Canada looked so bright that some people compared it to a unicorn. In Australia, albino kangaroos occasionally appear, startling anyone lucky enough to see them. Albino lions living in managed care have drawn enormous attention because they look almost unreal, like creatures designed for fantasy rather than for survival. An albino zebra discovered in Masai Mara stood out so strongly that it looked almost unfinished, as if nature had stopped halfway through painting it. And then there are the reptiles and birds. Albino cobras with white scales and red eyes look like something out of a nightmare. Albino crows with pink beaks and pale claws seem almost impossible when compared to the black image we all associate with crows. These animals challenge the image we think we know. They remind us that nature does not always repeat itself neatly. Sometimes it breaks its own pattern. That is why these animals stay in our minds so easily. They are not just rare, they force us to look twice. They make familiar animals feel unfamiliar again. A gorilla becomes ghost-like. A whale becomes legendary. A tiger becomes a symbol of both beauty and cruelty. A giraffe becomes so rare that even knowing where it lives feels dangerous. And maybe that is the real reason people are drawn to them. Not simply because they are white, but because they reveal how fragile life can be when one small genetic change alters everything. One difference in pigment can change how an animal hunts, hides, mates, survives, and is treated by the world around it. Some are protected in sanctuaries and zoos. Some vanish before they are ever documented. Some are turned into attractions. Some are turned into victims. But all of them tell the same story in different forms. Nature can create something breathtaking, and the world can respond with wonder, kindness, fear, or exploitation. So the next time you see a white animal in a video, a photograph, or a documentary, try to see more than just the color. See the cost of standing out. See the difficulty of surviving while being impossible to ignore. And see the quiet resilience of a creature that never asked to be rare, yet lives as one of nature's most unforgettable exceptions. If you enjoyed watching, please be sure to like and subscribe to Battle Wild.